Joining us tonight for the interview, having just spoken at Occupy Denver this evening, which I watched on the live stream, is Michael Moore, filmmaker and author of the new book, Here Comes Trouble, Stories from My Life. Mike, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rachel.
Am I right that you are at the Tattered Cover in Denver? Is that where you are right now?
I am at the Tattered Cover bookstore in Denver, very famous bookstore here in this part of the country.
Before you leave, give everybody a hug from me, because I love that place. I know you were. So sorry. I was just going to say, I know you were at Occupy Oakland a few days ago, Occupy Denver today. I've only been to Occupy Wall Street so far. What kinds of differences are you seeing when you go to these different protests between these different places, Mike?
What I'm seeing are it's actually quite similar. I've been to probably half a dozen Occupies across the country this past week, and it's clear that there's a real broad cross-section of people. I think we're past the early weeks of showing the same shot of somebody dancing in a long skirt and a bongo drum, which I'm all for dancing in long skirts and bongo drums. So don't send me any emails, bongo people. But what you see now are moms and dads bringing kids. You see grandparents. You see bus drivers. You see all kinds of people, and you see people who are suffering just complete abject poverty. So it really is quite a quilt, if I may say, of what this country is. And on all kinds of levels, everybody has sort of come together on this one basic issue, which is that our democracy doesn't exist when it comes to our economy. And people, average everyday people, don't have a say anymore as to how this economy runs, how it functions, how it affects people's lives. And I would think that if we're talking democracy in a democracy movement here, this is far more important to people than the democracy that allows us to vote for politicians, which I'm not saying that that's not important, but these things are the things that are facing people every day. People's homes are underwater, they're facing foreclosure, they have been foreclosed, they have been thrown out. 50 million people, you know all the stats. I don't need to go through this again. We don't have health care, the horrible situation with our educational system. You go down the list, and everybody has felt this on various levels, and they've all come together now. And I'll tell you what, from what I've seen, there's no turning back. They are not going away. They have had it. They want that, as I just said over here at the Occupy Denver rally, they want that boot, that corporate boot, off their necks. That's just strangled them at this point, and they are not able to function in just the very simple, basic American ways. Let me just have a job. Let me just get a decent salary. Let me put a roof over the heads of my family. And if I get sick, damn it, let me see a doctor. I mean, really, is that a lot to ask? It's been very powerful, and I've been very moved by what I've seen and heard.
Mike, it is one thing to see the big protests in places like New York and in Oakland and Los Angeles and Philly. It's another thing. It sort of hits you at a different level to see these smaller groups, things like, Occupy Youngstown, Ohio, Occupy Tulsa, Occupy Pensacola, Occupy Elkhart, Indiana, or Casper, Wyoming. What do you make of people choosing to do direct action like this in so many smaller, out-of-the-way places? Do you think how does that affect your understanding of the meaning of all this?
That's what's so amazing about this, and nobody's organized this. There's no structure. There's no email blasts going out through the dues-paying members. Saturday night, I was at Occupy Grass Valley, California. This is this little town as you head up into the mountains up toward Reno, and I'm thinking this is an area that's got a Republican congressman, and yet there's 400 people out here, for Occupy Grass Valley. Somebody told me there was 400 people at Occupy Fayetteville, Arkansas. I mean, the media really hasn't been able to cover the breadth of this because it's happening in so many places, and our newsrooms have been so decimated in the last decade that there literally aren't enough cameras or crews to cover all the small towns and villages and all the places I've seen this just springing up like it's just I've never seen anything like it, honestly, in my lifetime.
Aside from the common issue, the common complaint that you are describing, that our systems ought to work for somebody other than just the richest Americans, both our political system and our economic system. Aside from that issue, it seems like there are some tactical things that are in common here, even if there isn't a big top-down organizing movement. There's people using the people's microphone when they have a large crowd. There's people making decisions and meeting by General Assembly, which is basically a consensus-based discussion where everybody gets together and comes to a decision that everybody can live with. I wonder if you're seeing that, A, if you're seeing those tactics everywhere, and B, if there are splits emerging. I mean, as you know, in Oakland yesterday, it was a very successful general strike, very successful all day long, basically peaceful until after midnight when there was basically rioting, and the Occupy Oakland people are essentially disavowing the people who are rioting. Are you seeing difficult discussions about nonviolence and about potential splits and differences in tactics?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Everyone I've spoken to is committed 100% to nonviolence, that this is the only way that this is going to work. In fact, we don't need violence because we're not in the minority here. This is the majority. This is a majority movement. If this country is of, by, and for the people, if it's to run by the will of the majority, there's no need for violence because the majority have already said, we're sick and tired of this, and we expect some changes. I think in Oakland, there's a very specific, in terms of the violence there, Oakland has a long history of police abuse, of how the black community has been treated. They just have one of the, I mean, literally, it's almost in the DNA of how Oakland is structured in terms of their city hall and their police. And it doesn't seem to matter who the mayor is. They just can't deal with this basic problem. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But you're also going to have groups that come in wanting to co-opt this movement, whether it's slick politicians that want the endorsement of what they think is a liberal Tea Party, or anarchists or others who don't like the nonviolence approach and want some form of violence. But my experience, and I've been around since the anti-Vietnam War days, is that generally, and I told the crowd this over at Denver here just an hour ago, if you see someone trying to incite violence, start with the assumption that that person is an undercover Homeland Security or cop or whatever, because this is the history of America where those in charge have tried to ignite people, incite them to commit acts of violence. And I tell them, don't be incited. Just assume right away that person is not part of the Occupy movement if that's what they're calling on people to do.
Michael, do you mind staying with us for just a minute while we have to take a break?
No, sure, that'd be fine.
All right, Michael Moore joining us from...
I'll read a book here while I'm waiting.
Exactly, from the Tattered Cover Bookstore, one of America's great indies in Denver, Colorado. We'll be right back with more with Michael Moore.